End of the year's almost here. Let's talk about what we're going to be learning for 2019. So the first language I would suggest for your 2019 goal list is definitely Kotlin. Yes, Kotlin. It is starting to become an industry, just Swiss Army knife with a bunch of tools, and the versatility of this language actually has taken off much more than I originally thought it would. So we have the back end. It can do Spring. You have mobile. It does Android perfectly well. Pretty much Android support is just built in. And then you also have front end with Kotlin JS. Kotlin JS supports all ES6 features, so I definitely would suggest it. So my book suggestion for Kotlin and learning Kotlin, it would definitely be Kotlin in Action. I feel like the book gives you an excellent introductory to the Kotlin syntax, why it is much more different than the typical JVM languages like Java and Scala, and what sets it apart feature-wise and implementation-wise. This book definitely goes over some data structures. It goes over new ways of doing for loops and if conditionals. So it gets you through the basics very quickly, and at the same time you just feel like you know Kotlin in a chapter or two. So I would definitely suggest that on a book list for learning Kotlin. Also, the Kotlin docs are still fantastic. Like this is probably one of the best new languages with well supported, well thought out documentation, such that you're never really lost in the language. Number 2 on my list is definitely going to be Golang. I find this language to be not just a great systems programming language, but it also has that Swiss Army property that Kotlin is starting to evolve to have. It can work in the front end. There's a Golang JS implementation that can do server-side rendering pages. Golang is also great for REST APIs. Golang is also good for just system building tools in the first place. Overall, I think it's a great tool to have in your just in your resume. If you can use Golang, especially the channeling and multi-threading system, if you can really get good with that, then there's just no stopping you. So definitely check out Golang. My book suggestion for this would be the Golang programming language. It's amazing. The chapters really do build off your knowledge of the language incrementally, and eventually by chapter 8, when you get to the multi-threading part, you're well prepared to not only understand it, and it does it better than most books. Not only will you understand the multi-threading portions of the language, but also you'll really want to start using Golang to replace other languages and other tools that you've used and built before. So great software programming language. I definitely choose Golang for number 2. My number 3 is going to be the language of the web, also known as JavaScript. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of JavaScript. However, the recent changes between ES6, ES7, and now the other changes that are coming is the ES 2018, I'm actually really starting to enjoy the use of JavaScript. I've mainly used it in the Node.js space as a back-end developer. However, if you want to make that transition to being a real strong front-end developer with the front-end frameworks React, Angular, and Vue.js, the thorough understanding of JavaScript is necessary and vital. My book suggestion for JavaScript would be this, Eloquent JavaScript. I found this book really strong in teaching you how JavaScript works, because I think that's about 50% of learning JavaScript, honestly. Why it does what it does, how to utilize it when building tools, and also how to utilize it in general of just as its own separate language. I think that's one thing I've never fully understood with JavaScript. Too often people just look into frameworks and not learning the base part of what their language does. So Eloquent JavaScript does a great job doing that. I'll link it in the description below. Number 4 is definitely going to be Python. Now, Python, if you want to do big data, you want to do AI, you want to do machine learning, Python is just the easiest way to get into and learn different portions of just the big data world. So I would definitely suggest Python, as that language is pretty simple to pick up. For learning the language, my book suggestion for that would be automating the boring stuff. I found this very easy into learning data structures, how to build software, how to actually build it and script it and then have it run on other machines. So this is pretty good for any kind of POSIX kind of software that you want to build. Definitely good for that. So if you already know Python, I would highly suggest you focus on the tools that are built with Python in mind. And one book that I think handles that really well is Hands-On Machine Learning with Sidekick and Tensorflow. This book is pretty straightforward. If you know Python, there's actually a Python chapter here that teaches you some basics, but this will get you in the foot in the door learning what the power of these machine learning tools are. There's some AI here. There's some natural language processing that goes on. So honestly, Python's the language to go for if you're looking to make that move into big data. Number 5 is going to be Bash. As we move towards a more cloud-based deployment system, what I have found is that people are lacking tools for testing something, running scripts specifically, and all of these little moving parts that you would think would be gone are showing up a lot more. And so Bash is great as a mediator, especially if you're running pipelines from GitLab or Bamboo or GitHub. They do intermediary tasks before deploying your application. So one could be testing. I've seen Sonar scripts written in Bash that test and then return based on exit codes. So there's a series of things that Bash just covers. So and it's becoming much more important on your resume that you list that, hey, I do understand how to read scripts, because there are old scripts that do old things that are necessary that you might have to update if you're going to move a big monolith application to a microservices or SOA architecture, whatever you want to do. What you're going to find is that Bash scripting is becoming a little more important because cloud doesn't offer everything to do. Cloud really does handle the deployment, it handles the hosting, but the moving of files, all these underlying things will have to be handled by you. And one way to automate those things is to run a Bash script. Even with combination of Jenkins and Groovy do a lot of things correctly. However, there's just certain things that Bash just has the power to do that Groovy does not. So definitely put Bash on that list, and yeah, I think I think if you become strong enough in Bash, that it just shines on your resume over a ton of other candidates.